When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
I wrote a little song to remind you, Choice Hotels get you more of the experiences you value. The Cambria Hotel's got it all. A rooftop bar, have a ball. Cocktails up here feel just right. Is Cambria amazing? All right. Bring a date, your team, or even your mom. Book direct at choicehotels.com. See you on the roof.
All right. This ain't just a show. This is a platform. Veteran built, battle tested. Welcome to the Misfit Nation. Yeah! Mic in a room, built from boots on the ground. Now we breaking the rules. 2 vets, 1 leader, painting the sound. Turn scars into sermons, let them echo around. Authors with truth, musicians with fire. Actors backstage chasing something higher. Entrepreneurs bleeding just to get ahead. If you fought for your dream, yeah, you are what you said. If they told you no, if you still came back. If you fell to your knees, but you stayed on track. This is your voice, this is your flame. Say it loud, remember the name. Salvation, just elevation. We rise again. From the fight to the end. We are the Misfit Nation. No damn labels, no damn cages. If you're still breathing, you belong. Turn it up. This is our song. Yeah. This is our song. Yeah. Veterans standing with ghosts in the chest. First responders running in while the world second guess. Gold star names carved deep in the soul. Your story ain't over, we carry the whole. Coaches teaching mindset, breaking the chain, turning barely alive into owning the pain. Truth over polish, scars on display. If it's real, let it bleed. That's the misfit play. If it's heavy right now, and the dark feels close. If it's heavy right now, and the dark feels close. If it's heavy right now, and the dark feels close. It's Aubrey right now. We're the more than you know. 9888, don't walk alone. Veterans press 1, bring it home. Don't trade forever for tonight. You're still needed in this fight. We're the Misfit Nation, built from scars and dedication. We rise again. From the fire, from the fight to the end. We are the Misfit Nation. Every voice is vindication. From the silence to the scream, we're strong. Welcome home, you belong. You belong. You belong. Oh wait, you. Oh wait, you belong.
Woo! All right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation and your Sunday after dinner edition. We know you have other things you're going to be doing tonight, watching the World Cup, watching WNBA, checking out NASCAR at Coronado, riding around the base with the Carl Vinson as the headquarters of the race broadcast today. That's just an amazing thing to do, and it's just a great show they're putting on there today. So if you're not on it yet, put it on the split screen, put it on the bottom corner for the last 5 laps of the race, and check us out too. So tonight, we're diving into one of the biggest questions of our time. Is the world actually falling apart, or are we witnessing something much bigger? Our guest is Scott Paradis, a retired U.S. Army colonel, former congressional fellow in the United States Senate, former National Security Fellow at Harvard University, and the author of 11 books focused on leadership, money, success, and human potential. Over a remarkable 30-year military career, he served across Europe, the Middle East, and Washington, D.C., gaining a front row seat to leadership, power, and the systems that shape our society. Today, he challenges conventional thinking through his latest project, What's Really Going On? Apocalypse or Evolution? Is the chaos the way we see it around us not being evidence of collapse at all, but signs of transformation? We're going to explore money, power, leadership, societal change, personal growth, and what role each of us play in shaping the future. So, Misfit Nation, get ready for a conversation that may change the way you see the world. So let's join me in welcoming Scott Paradis to the show. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, Rich. It's great to be with you. I appreciate you having me.
It's awesome to have you here. And I always like to tell people it's great to have a fellow veteran come on. And a veteran's been around and seen things from many different angles, from the Senate Fellowship, from the National Security Fellowship at Harvard, and of course, in your day-to-day job as a soldier for 30 years from Europe, Middle East, and of course, the great streets of DC, and now in Denver, Colorado, just relaxing and writing a lot of books. So welcome and thanks for being here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
So Scott, I gave the elevator pitch about you. If you want to fill in some blanks there for the Misfit Nation, throw out some more of your evolution in there for us.
Sure. Since a lot of your viewers are probably veterans, my career has been, I call it eclectic. So I started out in the infantry. And I actually joined the Army Reserve right out of high school. And I figured I'd stay in the reserve for a few years and then move on to something else. But I joined what was called the simultaneous membership program, where you join the Army Reserve and then you join ROTC, got my commission, stayed in the reserve, was going to light the world on fire through entrepreneurial projects and that sort of thing. I got married a couple years out of college and my wife was teaching school. And then our first child was coming along and my projects were up and down. Nothing was really hitting big. So we decided we wanted her to be able to stay home, which meant I needed to get on the straight and narrow. So I applied to go on active duty. And they said, sure, you can come on. First thing you got to do is a recruiting tour. So I was an operations officer at a recruiting battalion in Kansas City. And then immediately upon that first assignment, I called my personnel guy at Fort Knox. And I said, hey, we'd like to go to Europe. And he said, so would everyone else. Don't call us. We'll call you. Well, interestingly enough, 3 years later, as that recruiting tour is coming to an end, I get this phone call and they said, hey, you still want to go to Europe? I said, sure, I'd love to go to Europe. He said, one little catch. The Dayton Peace Accords had just been signed and they were sending a multinational force under U.S. leadership to Bosnia, and they needed somebody to act as a replacement. So I said, sure, I'll go. Within 2 weeks of me hitting Europe, I was off to Bosnia. My wife, now with 2 young children, was on her own to find housing and do all the rest of it. And I know your military families will have been through that before. So that was my life. But then every assignment after that was kind of this eclectic blend of very different abnormal things. So I did not follow a normal career path, so to speak, but it led me to some very interesting places.
It definitely did. And the concurrent joining ROTC and the reserves at the same time, I'm sure that was a lot of fun doing both concurrently. We're in a dot at the ROTC. I mean, at ROTC, we're in a dot. They go into the reserves and filling your role as the whatever your MOS was at that point, and then doing that changeover, as you said, you had to find a thing that was more stable as you started to grow a family, and that's usually a decision a lot of us have to make and keep things stable and move forward. And yesterday I had a guest on, Allison Merton, who talked about the wife's side, the spouse side of all these moves. And you just hit the same thing, talking about how they keep things together. And we just all we have to do is push forward and do what Uncle Sam tells us. And we don't think about what's happening back there until we get yelled at on the phone or we come home to straight chaos.
It's so true. I mean, the spouses are the unsung heroes.
They definitely are. And I appreciate my wife 100% for dealing with me all those years. And then, of course, with the Army on top of it. And I'm sure you have the same thoughts as well. For 30 years you did. I did my only 22. You beat me by 8 years, but they are the unsung heroes for all of us, whether husband or wife that stays home while the other one goes away. It's a rough job. And
it is.
Looking back now, I can say, yes, it was a rough job. I didn't think about it while I was in. I pay the price now.
Yes, Yes, I understand.
So as you started your transition out, I'm sure you started writing some of these books before you transitioned out. At 30 years, you had some time in there where you can, I guess, focus on writing a little bit and then do your job as well. What was your process to start the books and get going?
I did. So I'd moved. So through a sort of a very, as I said, eclectic assignments, I ended up at the Pentagon, and I ended up working on Capitol Hill as a fellow, and then was in legislative liaison and that sort of thing. And I decided to write my very first book, and it was titled Promise and Potential. And the idea was, it was, I would say it's a personal development book, personal potential. And that title I wrote while I was on active duty, published that book, and it got me started in this writing process. So a lot of what I did in both working for the Senate and then later on in charge of strategic communications was in the communications arena. So then I wrote my first book. And when it came time to retire, so I decided I wanted to do something that would make an impact and a contribution. And so I thought I'd get in personal and professional development. And from there, I started writing, and I put together educational programs, workshops, seminars, online programs, that sort of thing. And then over the last number of years, have written 11 books in total and put in online programs and done workshops and seminars and all the rest.
That's a lot for anyone. Never mind someone that's working a full-time job at the same time in DC. I mean, said the word chaos before a couple of times. I say chaos. DC is nothing but chaos. It's organized chaos, and if you don't know how to evolve there or evade capture it in DC, you're not going to be able to get anything done. So kudos to you for being able to wear the two hats and do that at the same time.
Yeah, it was an interesting time, that's for sure. DC is always an interesting place.
And it doesn't matter who's sitting at 1600. It's always going to be something going on in DC from every other angle. It doesn't matter. I mean, now it's whoever they don't like is what the angle is going to be. But for us, it's just we put our boots on one at a time, our pants on the same way every day, and go to work. And I'm sure that's what you did in the Pentagon as well.
That's right. That's right. And it was, so I found it my whole career. So once I applied for active duty and then went on active duty, my wife and I, we talked about it, and we said, we're going to use this as an opportunity to see the world on Uncle Sam's dime. And it has been really both an eye-opening and awesome experience.
And I mean, that's amazing that you get to do the travel, you get to see everything, and we get to bring our better half with us sometimes.
That's right. That's right.
For us, our big trip as a family move was Korea. So she got to see Korea for a few years. So it's a beautiful country. And I actually did tour guide stuff there, tourism, when I was with her. The other two times I just did what you do in Korea. And,
yes.
Drink and waste away. And the third time I got to see all of Korea. I've seen the parts of Korea I didn't know existed. But it was amazing to have them with me. And then after I got out, I had a TDY to Germany as a contractor, and she came with me. So we got to see some of Germany.
Oh, good.
That was amazing as well. So
yes.
That was awesome. So where do you, as you built the programs, you built the online programs, and I told you all the links I've seen on you have a TED Talk as well. The TED Talk, does that go into what your books deal with as well, or is it kind of?
It is. I would say yes. Most of my books are under the umbrella of personal and professional development. So the TED Talk is focused on it really unleashing your personal potential. So that's what that specific talk is about. But all of it is about growth and really becoming more of who you truly are. And I like to frame it, it's really letting go of everything you're pretending to be and becoming the real you.
Definitely. Yes. And I'll share that link here in a minute for the TED Talk, so people can watch that after our show. I don't want them to watch it now because it defeats the purpose of the show. But
exactly.
When you started all this writing, did you think back to like when you were in elementary school or maybe high school and thinking, I would never be a writer at this point? Or at that point, did you think maybe I want to write stuff?
Well, that's interesting. One of my favorite, so I did not envision myself as a writer in young age, but when I did go to college, one of my favorite courses was writing. So then 20 years goes by before I decided to take it up. And then when I sat down to write, and you find this about writers, my challenge was, okay, how am I going to convey the message or the vision that I want to convey? And what I did was I set up a framework of how would I teach somebody what I'm trying to write on the page. And so I would frame it in that way. If I were teaching this, how would I do that? And each of my chapters becomes essentially what would have been a lecture. And then I would put that all together. So I do an outline first, and then I put all the lectures together. And then it's not written like a school program, but you understand what I'm saying. And that ultimately produces the whole product.
I'm looking at all your books on Amazon right now. I was just laughing at the second one that pops up. Are Americans really this stupid? the guy I don't know whose picture it is on there, but the face on it makes you think. It just makes you laugh looking at the picture, looking at that. I mean, there's some good titles here: Explosive Leadership, Sheep Herders and Wolves, Capital Crimes, Money, the New Science of Making It, Health, Fitness Habits, High Performance Habits, How to Succeed at anything. Warriors, Diplomats, and Heroes, Promised Potential, Success 101. And I think this was addressing the global freshwater crisis before the wave crashes. It goes through a gambit of things there, gambit of titles. So it's amazing. Let's hit into let's hit on the Americans are really the stupid title here, and just hit some of the highlights of that book.
Well, it brings me to my current project, but I'll go back to I was looking at why are we challenged the way we are. And I'll run it to politics and economics. And that I'd written the money book, and then I'm looking at why are we going down this path that is creating more chaos and more confusion, which caused me to write that book. And it really is this idea of, let me frame it this way. So if we take 100%, you've got 20% of the people are what we would call leaders, progressive, positive people who are looking to achieve. So they are achievement-driven folks. That's about 20% of the people. These are simplifying these numbers. On the other end are the 20% of people who are really, they're in it for themselves, and they really aren't about achievement. They're just about getting all they can, as much as they can, when they can. The 60% in the middle are just subject to influence. And what happens to us politically is we swing from one side to the other, from this positive, we're all in this together, collective, collaborative, creative sort of approach to economics and politics and so forth. And then the pendulum swings and we go the other way. Every man for himself, get as much as you can, as fast as you can, and all that. And so that's what caused me to write that book. Why do we vacillate like that? Can't we see from a broader perspective with greater awareness and understanding and not get so easily manipulated? And that was what the focus of that book is, how easy most of us are susceptible to influence. And that was the crux of that book. But then as I go on and I'm working on other projects, I kind of ask this question. So it seems the chaos is getting worse. And so I ask the question, what's really going on? And then I frame it, is it apocalypse? Because you see the narrative is being defined by certain groups across the country and around the world. Some are defining our moment in time now as the end. In other words, we're leading ourselves toward Armageddon and the society is going to collapse. And some have put a very religious narrative on it, both in a Christian narrative and a Jewish narrative and other world religions as well. And they're all looking at our time as this may be the end times. Well, I don't like that framing necessarily, but the chaos is continuing to grow worse. Other folks are framing it in a different way. And I don't know if you're familiar with the book, The Fourth Turning. Two think tank guys out of DC, Strauss and Howe, wrote this book in the 1990s. And I read it about 15 years ago. And they said there's a social cycle. That's about an 80 to 100-year social cycle that goes through 4 stages. But the final stage is the chaos stage. And they said we would enter that stage in the years of the 2000s. So I think Strauss is now deceased, and I think Howe's still around. And he's written the book and said, we're in the middle of it now. But it's this social cycle where we pull together. And so those would be periods after the chaos, we pull together. So they call it the fourth turning because the first turning, they say, is the revolution, the Revolutionary War. Then about 80 years later is the Civil War. That's the culmination of the chaos period. 80 years later is World War II, culmination of the chaos period. 80 years later is now. And that's why they call it the fourth turning. But essentially, we go through 4 cycles where we pull together after that chaos. We come together, we work together cooperatively, collaboratively, and then we progress. But eventually, people start breaking out on their own, and that cycle degrades into every man for himself, which every man for himself leads to chaos again. And then we go through the period of chaos. We have some defining, generally painful event that then brings us all back together again. So that's another framework. But so are we in the end times, that in the religious framing, or is it something like this social cycle or something else? And that is what's caused this latest project that I'm working on right now, which I produced an online program for, and am just about to publish a book, What's Really Going On, Apocalypse or Evolution.
Nice. I pulled up the fourth turning. I shared that with the audience as well. The fourth turning, I shared your whole book page. So that way they can, gather both of them and see both sides of that, from 1997 to fourth turning. Then to Americans Are Really Stupid, I think it was 2021 on the page. So that was right at the end of the pandemic, I guess the lockdown phase of the pandemic. So that's where that book had to reach a height right there. Are Americans Really the Stupid? Being influenced by either side, telling them, you take the shot, you're going to die. Don't take the shot, you're going to die. Or
yes.
What do I do? What do I do with my hands at this point? And I think as we progressed through the 2000s, probably from 2009 on, and when Facebook started growing up and all the other social media started growing, and outside influence is able to get into those and start picking into the brains of people, saying this is what you're supposed to think. And that's where that influence really started to take hold, not just the box that we watch on TV, but the box that we stare at all the time in our hands or on the computer. So much outside influence pollutes our brains. If you let it pollute your brain and don't read that history or read something else, you're going to believe whatever that talking head says. And how do you think we can fix that? If you have an opinion, how can we start that?
Yes. Solving that, first of all, and I say this in everything that I do, the first is awareness. So you got to understand that you're being sucked into something that may or may not be true. Right. And the challenge of our existence is to discern truth from falsehood or misinformation or whatever it may be. But most people choose the most convenient path, which is, I'm not willing to both accept responsibility for discerning what truth is, so I'll just default to whatever seems to be the convenient collective narrative and never really question the message. And so that if I get in this stovepipe, then I just keep getting the same message over and over and over again, and it must be true because all my friends believe it. Nobody's questioning it. Nobody's challenging it. Well, the first thing is awareness. Have I been sucked in? And there has been there have been some people who've written, and I don't know if you have a biblical background, but some folks say there's the mark of the beast. And some have said the mark of the beast is not something that's going to be put on you. It's already here in the form of our phones. Everyone is sucked into the phone, and you watch. I went to some public place, and there was a prom or something going on, and I looked around, and in this public space, they weren't in the place, but there were like a dozen teenage girls. None of them were talking to each other. All 12 of them were staring at their phones, and I thought, this is what we've come to. And so the first thing is awareness. Have I been sucked in? And then am I questioning what is really true or not? So how do we break that? That is $1 million question. It first is we've got to be aware that we're being influenced by forces that aren't necessarily looking out for our best interests. So we've got to be aware of that. Awareness is the first step. And then I'm responsible for my own life, where I go, what I do, all of those things. So am I going to let that be dictated by someone outside of me through potentially this handheld device that I carry everywhere with me? Or am I going to make a more deliberate approach and interact with people, actually have face-to-face conversations with real human beings about issues that matter?
Don't you ever curse like that again. Talk to people. Come on. I've seen whole families at restaurants when you reference those girls at the whole families at restaurants, the smallest ones on a tablet, and then the mid-range ones are on phones, the parents are on phones, and sometimes they're texting each other.
Yes.
They won't talk, but they'll text and send emojis to each other. It's just ridiculous. There should be some law against that, or, I mean, that's where we've gone, though, because the babysitter is the tablet now for the kids. Yes. And then the phones are just a leash, and everyone has to have it. If It's the fear of missing out. And like you said, awareness. If you don't know what's going on outside of that little box, you're not making informed decisions. You're making
That's right.
based on what someone's telling you to do. And
Yeah.
that's what we're seeing across for the last 16 years now. We started
Yeah.
seeing that, and it just gets worse and worse and worse as people get their minds erased and told what to do and wear weird shirts and say weird things and do stuff. And we just got to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show and hope it doesn't come to our front door.
Yes. Yes. So one of the things that, and I frame this, what's really going on, apocalypse or evolution, as 5 storms. And one of the storms that I say is this accelerating technological advance. So this technology is being developed. It really is awesome, the power, the capability, all of that, but it's taking on a life of its own, and that is creating some challenges for all of us. So I say that is one of the storms we are facing. So I'll run you through the other 4 storms. First is we have this environmental upheaval. And so we see once in a century events happening every few years. So floods, storms, earthquakes, volcanoes. I don't know if you've been paying attention to what's going on in the Pacific with the volcanoes, all kinds of things happening all at the same time, what I call environmental upheaval. So that's storm number 1, is what's going on in this environment that's surrounding us. Storm number 2 is what I call economic stratification. We have the largest economic divide between the haves and the have-nots we've seen in modern history. We have 1/3 of the wealth controlled by the top 1%. The top 10% controls more than 50% of the wealth. The bottom 50% are in aggregate in debt. So we have this divide that is unprecedented in modern history. Some folks will argue the Gilded Age was divided, but we've never seen it as divided as it is now. So we have this economic stratification that is causing economic turmoil around the world. So that's storm number 2 going on right now. We have this political polarization. Now, the political polarization is by design. It's deliberate. And it's deliberate by the folks who can grab power, like the masses divided and polarized, fighting each other so that nobody can come together and realize what's really going on. That's storm number 3. Storm number 4, I already mentioned, which is this technological acceleration. And storm number 5 is that all of us living life we face personal adversity and loss. So you bring those 5 storms together, we have 5 storms converging, and it's unprecedented really in human history for us now to see all these storms converging. And what do? So some people have painted the narrative that it's the end of the world. It is end time, so to speak. The word apocalypse, which is funny, if you look in the Bible, the book of Revelation was originally titled in Greek as apocalypsis. Apocalypse does not mean the end. It means an unveiling, a revealing. So all of these storms converging is really an opportunity for us to look at how we contribute to these storms and make better choices. The question we have to ask for all of us is, are we willing and able to make a better choice?
And that's a great question for everyone out there that's listening, or anyone out there that reads one of your books. You have to make informed choices, and you can't let those tides get you and grab you and suck you in and make you think that you're doing something because of apocalypse or 2012 was on the other day, and you think that's going to happen because the Chinese have tunnels that they're building giant ships in for us to all go to. If that was happening, I'm sure one of us would know about it by now, and it might come out, and it's probably out on the internet right now telling you that it is happening. And we just got to either say, yes, it's really happening, or no, it's not happening, and find your path and take that road less traveled at that point. And maybe you'll make the right decision, and maybe John Cusack won't be the guy saving us.
Yes. Well, we like to say that it's going to be some grand event. And I don't know, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, but I think, and this is where I have gone with this, trying to read the tea leaves, see what's happening, look at this convergence of storms. And the first question I asked is, why is someone not, okay, so we have this idea of the white knight on the horse coming to save us. Why isn't someone coming to the foreground and saying, this is all madness, here's the direction we need to go? And that's not the case, because I have arrived at this conclusion, which you may or may not agree with. Ultimately, this is a personal challenge, a personal circumstance that really affects us all, but we all are being forced to make a personal choice. And the choice is, we as a human society have for 12,000 years have chosen competition, the survival mentality of we are going to compete with each other. We're going to use primarily a taking game to take from one another, and we're going to build hierarchies. We've been doing this for 12,000 years. We continue to build these hierarchies until they collapse of their own weight. And then we start building again the Tower of Babel over and over and over again until it collapses. Or for the first time in recorded human history, are we going to make a different choice? And the different choice is, are we going to connect? That is that human to human, face-to-face contact that we were just talking about. Collaborate, that is work together for common good, and create something that will advance us all. That will be a diversion from the choice we've been making for 12,000 years. But we are being asked through this convergence of storms to come to a decision point that I'm either going to choose the old way, and I'm not putting a value judgment with that. Some people will continue to choose the old way and learn the lessons that the old way will allow them to learn, or they can choose a better way and start down a whole new path.
Definitely. A lot of people are so afraid of change, they will just stay with that same thing over and over and over again because they get comfortable in that situation. They believe that's the chaos they want to live in.
Yes.
Where there is a better path for them and they could make better decisions to do other things. And it's not helping them out to stay in that same path and keep doing the same things that generation after generation have done and not getting any out of their own way.
Right. You know, you said afraid of change. And I think you hit the nail right on the head in that the same theme for why we don't communicate with one another, why we don't come together, why we don't accept that life is change, is this idea of fear. We are clinging to fear. We cling to the way things are, to what we think we have, when in the end we have nothing. We go through this experience for a purpose, but in the end, we're not taking anything with us to the grave. So the process of this moving through is an experience. And the more we cling to fear, the more we limit our experience. But instead, folks who have an agenda, who want to gain power and control, leverage our susceptibility to fear to divide us, to set up this economic stratification, this political polarization, all the things that divide us, this technological control and influence. And it's all because we are susceptible to fear and we allow fear to drive what we are going to do in life.
And if you just take a step back and then watch all these things playing out in front of you, you can see that it's a fear game.
Yes.
Everything, no matter what side you believe in, A or B, they both have a different fear-mongering way of doing it, and the news feeds into it for them. Whichever side they're on, they feed for it, and people just buy into it. Oh my God, this is going to happen. I have to do this. If I don't side with them, this is going to happen to me. But if you just take a step back and breathe and maybe think things through a little bit, like we said earlier, read something else, you might find a different path and might find a better way, and maybe not to get sucked into that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the subcomponents, as I talk people through how we've divided ourselves, I use the money game as an example. And I say the thing we've been doing for 12,000 years is playing this taking game. So there are two types of money games being played. All wealth is created by real people doing real, productive, constructive things for each other. All real wealth is created by real people creating something of value and bringing it to the marketplace, and then we exchange that value. That is what I call the making economy, the real economy, Main Street. That is doing something productive, constructive for one another. That's all wealth. There is, however, another way to approach things, and that is by taking. So somebody creates something, and instead of creating something of value yourself and exchanging the value, if I'm bigger, stronger, more cunning, more ruthless, I can, as history shows, just take it from you by force. So we can repeatedly play this taking game. Today, those two games are still being played. If you ask most people who are participating in the economy and they were to define it through making and taking, they would say, I'm part of the real world Main Street economy of making. I go to work, I create something of value, I bring that value to the marketplace. And most people are, in fact, participating in the real world making economy. What they don't realize, however, is there is a taking economy that overlays the making economy. And we've created rules in our gameplay that say ownership is more important than bringing value to the marketplace. And we've empowered it through this concept of money, that all I need to do is get money and then I can get what I want. I don't have to bring value to a marketplace. All I have to do is get money. And that is how the game we have structured, we have created, is constructed, that then creates this idea of you as an individual. What I want you to do is go create something of value, bring it to the marketplace, and then somebody with the power of money can then take it from you. And that's why most people in the real world economy are running as fast as they can, and they figure, how come I can't get ahead? Well, it's because something overlays the making economy, and it's the taking economy, and we just don't see it. Once we recognize the truth, we can actually change the nature of the game, change the rules of the game, and level the playing field. And that is this component that I'm talking about that ends up with our economic stratification and our political polarization.
That's amazing. Yes. And hopefully someone out here is listening and takes heed to this. We do have a question from the audience right now. And this is from at Jump Now. After serving in the Army, Congress, and studying at Harvard, what is one thing you've learned about power that most people never understand? Thank you, Jump Now.
I think, the fundamental thing is how powerful you as an individual are. What we generally do is we give away our power to our political system, to our economic system, to something outside ourselves, when in fact, you ultimately control the power of how you deal with these storms that I've been talking about, and then how you approach life and how much power you actually give away. So the more fear that we are susceptible to, the more we just abide by whatever the dictates of the powers on high are, the more power we cede. And that's what most folks fundamentally misunderstand, is by giving my power away, then I think I've got to rely on others to dictate my choices, what I do, when in fact you ultimately have all the power. And you give it away by saying, I'm gonna leave this up to them to do, or leave that to them to do, and I'm not going to take responsibility for my own life. So this power is tied to responsibility. And I tell people this: freedom. Everybody says, I want freedom. Well, freedom usually means I want to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, where I want to do it, without regard to consequences. Well, the flip side of freedom is responsibility. You cannot have freedom without responsibility. There is no free lunch. You always have consequences. You must be prepared to deal with those consequences. So this idea of power is intimately tied to this idea of responsibility. I'm going to take responsibility for how I approach life, how I deal with what happens in this environment around me, and how I address the folks that are around me, because ultimately I have the power and I am powerful. So that is the first thing that I want to say. Now, when you look at institutional power, things like working on Capitol Hill, the interesting thing that I found about this power is it's all about human relations, which is interesting when we say we're staring at our phone and we're being manipulated, when in fact on Capitol Hill, deals are made by people talking to each other and influencing one another, and things happen through relationships. We're all in this together. So this idea of you have the power, and the way you expand your power is through relationships. I would say those, to me, would be the two most powerful things, the most impactful ways to consider power.
Outstanding. And jump for you, or Jump Now. I hope that answers your question. That's a great answer on power. Now, I want to go back to your time as a congressional fellow. Was there a specific senator or a congressman you were assigned to, or was it a panel, a group of fellows together?
No, it's interesting. So the fellows, when they're selected, so you apply through DOD, and they select you. And then essentially when I went, it was you go find your own member. So you can go to the House side or the Senate side, and you essentially go out there and put feelers out who you might end up working with. I ended up working for Susan Collins, the senator from Maine. And it was a great experience. So I was what was considered the military legislative liaison for her. So I worked all the military issues for one calendar year for her. And it was an insight into seeing. So I was on the Capitol Hill side looking back at the Department of Defense. So I was working for a senator, got a rating from the senator, but I was paid by the Department of Defense as a fellow promoting or helping to promote DOD interests, if you will. But I did work for one senator for the year.
Nice. And I'm sure you got to meet a lot of lobbyists that came in there to try to push their influence for that power we just spoke about. So I've gone up there a few Junes to go up there with the USJLC to promote smart power over hard power, and the smart power initiative to save our brothers and sisters from going to be the tip of the spear first without democracy, using diplomacy first, and then you fall back. And there was only like 2 times I've seen a military legislative assistant in there, and one was with Marsha Blackburn and one was with Senator Haggerty, and there was 2 different times. But both of them were kind of standoffish. They didn't want to really speak much about what we were speaking about, but they would just take their notes so they can feed back to the member. And I found that interesting that they were the legislative assistant, military legislative assistant, and they wouldn't really give that feedback right away. I guess they tried to be impartial at that moment and then with their thesis or their ideas to the member after.
You know, it's interesting, and things have evolved since I was there. So I was in the aught years, and things have moved even in the 15 years since. But the two points that I'd make with that. So first, usually the folks who are on the military, so you're either on the Defense Appropriations Committee or the Armed Forces Committees in both the House and Senate, those would have military legislative liaison. So if you're not associated with a military-related committee, you may not have a military assistant. The second thing, to your point, though, about willing to engage, the very first time I went to see a senator about anything, I was not a fellow at this point. I was just in there to potentially suggest some legislation that might advance some interest in DOD. The very first question, they didn't care about the substance of the legislation at all. They said, who else is on board? That was their very first question. Who else is on board? Not, how great is this legislation, or what will it influence, or how will it impact anybody? It was, who else is on board, which goes back to my relationships. What they cared about is what were the relationships that would help advance this piece of legislation. Many pieces of legislation take potentially decades of concerted effort to advance, to build these, ultimately a majority to pass legislation. But the fellows themselves, or the assistants, the military legislative assistants, would generally engage earlier, and I would engage, looking into the pros and cons of the legislation or the interest that group was trying to promote, so that I could educate the senator on all aspects, good and bad, about the legislation. I would say today they are more hesitant to engage openly because of how hardened the positions are right and left, and they don't want to speak out of school, so to speak. So they just gather the information and bring it back to the principal.
That makes a lot of sense. And it goes back to you saying you got rated by Senator Collins. They're probably thinking about that rating as well now, and not getting into that gray area on either side of the fence to show allegiance to anyone and just kind of write down what was said and hand it off.
Yes.
That's why they were standoffish. That makes a lot of sense. Yes. Our next question comes in from Kent Graphics. If the current system is working exactly as designed, what practical steps can ordinary people take to create a better future for themselves and their families? Thank you, Kent Graphics.
You know, first of all, I say the system is working as designed because it is an extraction exploitive system. So the system is designed to funnel or channel money from the masses to the few. And that's an unfortunate circumstance. So what we tend to think is a level playing field is not level. So first thing, I'll go back to awareness. Understand that the field is not level. First thing. Then understand what are your skills, capabilities, talents, and network. So you want to advance all of those things. And I would say stay in the making arena. Now, this is a value judgment on my part, because some people in the taking arena will succeed extraordinarily well, but it not create any real value. Let me frame it a little bit differently. About 20% of the U.S. economy is in the financial sector. The financial sector is about who owns what and who owes what. We have advanced from about 5% of our economy being financialized to about 20% of our GDP being driven by financialization, which means 20% of the economy is just people trading who owes what and who owns what. not creating any real value at all. Now, you as an individual have to decide, am I going to play in the financial arena of just creating or trading and who owns and who owes and play in that world? And that is legitimately a way to earn money for your family. But I would offer at least to consider or be aware that you're playing deliberately in that arena, so that if you're a person who aspires to or has moral principles, then you've got to be cognizant of that and play fairly, honestly, as best you can in that world. If you're playing in the making world, which is creating real value and real wealth, understand that there are other people trying to extract that from you through what would be the financialized side of the economy. And you've got to understand. So first thing is awareness. What arena am I playing? Am I playing in the real economy of creating value? Am I doing that well? Then follow skills, talents, abilities, and network to advance that as much as you can. Is someone overlaying me in the financialized economy and extracting wealth from me? Then I got to be aware of that and take steps to mitigate that extraction. If I'm going to play in the financialized side of the economy, am I going to do it honestly and morally and adeptly, so that I am actually creating some means of creating value in that side of the game, so to speak? But understand, it is all a game. And ultimately, in the end, it's how am I going to play that game? Am I going to play it fairly, honestly, justly, and have a good outcome for all of us? Or am I going to play it where I'm the only one that benefits in the end because it's a winner-take-all game? It's that extraction game, the taking game that we have played for 12,000 years. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it made sense. So when you were saying about the buying and selling of money, trading people's wealth or trading people's debts, all I thought about was the mortgage industry and how the broker will sell you on your mortgage, and they'll give you this big sale, how much they're going to be on your side, and you'll pay those first maybe 4 mortgage payments. All of a sudden, you're paying a different company.
Yes,
So
exactly.
you just sold that debt to someone else.
Yes.
And it just keeps getting sold. And I think I've had this house now 5 years. I'm on my 4th mortgage company. And every time I get so used to, having my login and everything, it changes. Like, what just happened?
Yes.
Now we got to do everything all over again.
Right.
It's seamless. You're not going to feel anything. I do feel it. It does hurt me. The end user hurts. It doesn't hurt you at all because you just grab money and run and make money. So I don't. I have to keep paying somebody. It's just not the person I thought I was.
Yes. Yes.
And you also hit before you talked about the free lunch thing, and right on my corner, there is someone running for a school board, and that's their number one thing, and their free lunch for all, free meals for all. Someone has to pay for that. It just doesn't come out of thin air. The food just does not appear. You have to pay for it somehow. Someone's going to pay for it. Nothing is free in life. You got to get that out of your system. But that goes back to the other thing we spoke about earlier, the fear mongering.
Yes.
If these kids don't have that food, they're going to die. Or if we don't put this free food out there, these kids won't have food. They will have food. It's just not the way you think it's going to happen. I believe.
Yes. Yes. So I think you're exactly right. And so the first step is awareness of what's really going on.
Right. 100% awareness. We keep going right back to that.
Yes.
Awareness. And I believe, hopefully it's getting nailed into it. You say the same thing over and over again. People start to listen. I think I need to be aware. Aware. All right. Here we go. And hopefully we're getting there tonight. And
that's right.
Next question comes from Yeller Fella. What is the biggest misconception people have about money and how it influences society? I think you kind of just hit some of this.
Well, let me just give you one idea. Most people think money is real. Money is not real. It is purely a social construct. In other words, it's in a social agreement. You and I agree that money has value simply because we agree it does. It's a medium of exchange, unit of account, and hopefully a store of value if the money has some trust. But it is just a system to establish trust. I'm going to use this vehicle of money to establish trust so that we can trade value. So the misconception for most people is that money is not real. It's just this idea that we've all agreed to. And then through our agreement to money being something valuable, we empower money. Once we empower money, we create this ability for some to then just grab the money, doesn't matter by what means, just grab money, and then I can dominate society. And unfortunately, as we've all bought into this narrative that money seems to be real, it seems to be something that is a state, it's a natural law or something, that we all lose the idea that we're the ones that have made this game up. We're the ones that write the rules. We're the ones that agree to the rules. And we can, in fact, change the rules.
100%. And those rules are made to, just like an op order.
Yes.
Guideline. It's a guideline. Rules are a guideline. You have to know where those rules help and hurt you, and get around them or get through them the best way possible to live your life the best you can, to take care of your family, your tribe, take care of that tribe, and make those right decisions. And the rule book isn't there just to get slapped in your face all the time. It's there as a guideline to help you navigate life and navigate things through other things. And there's another whole library called the Bible that can help you with a lot of these things as well.
I just don't think most people understand the game they're playing or the rules of the game.
Right. And where they fit into the game.
Yes. Yes.
I think we'll take one last question from the audience. Looks like someone that might have been a cannon cocker or a field artillery person. Lanyard puller. If humanity is at the evolutionary crossroads, what signs should we be watching for over the next 5 years?
Okay.
Thank you.
That is a great question, because I'm doing the same thing. Now, let me frame this. Some people contend, and I can't argue with this, that this is just a bump in the road. So this convergence of storms, we just happen to be at a stormy period in our history. And when Strauss and Howe say we're in this chaos part of the cycle, that's just the nature of the cycle, and we will maybe have a defining event. So if you look at Strauss and Howe's depiction of this cycle, we will have, so they said the last defining event was World War II. The defining event before that for the U.S. was Civil War. Defining event before that was Revolutionary War. So it was a painful defining event. So we may have a painful defining event if you look at Strauss and Howe's perspective. If you look at the biblical perspective of the book of Revelation, Isaiah's prophecies and so forth, you may say this is the end times. We're going to have Armageddon again, some major war that is going to bring about the end time, so to speak. I don't necessarily agree with either of those perspectives. I believe, and I have always believed, so I believe that we were on a path to more progress. We've never lived up. The best marketing documents ever written are the U.S. Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Those are the two best marketing documents ever written. They were aspirational. They were not, this is how we live. We're not, we've not reached this point, but this is the direction we aspire to. People around the globe have embodied those documents, that emphasis, and said, that's where I want to go. I want to go to the United States because those are about aspirational values. We've never achieved that, but I always thought we were moving in that direction. Well, now these storms are all swirling about, and I thought, wait a minute, we're not moving in that direction anymore. So back to the question, will there be a defining event? If it's just a bump in the road and we're moving on, well, we'll bump in the road and the pendulum will swing in another direction. Could there be a defining event? The question in my mind to answer that most definitively is what goes on environmentally. If we continue to see worse and worse environmental upheaval, I believe those are indicators that this defining event is going to be environmental or potentially through human conflict. It's been human conflict these last 3 or 4 cycles, but it could be environmental, it could be human conflict. So if we see something big happening around the world, all we're doing is we're being pushed closer and closer to making a personal choice. And the personal choice, I'll go back to my point. The personal choice is, are we going to stick with the old way, which is conflict, survival of the fittest, dog eat dog? Or are we going to come together, connect, collaborate, and create together? That's the ultimate choice we are going to have to come to terms with. But over the next 5 years, the question was framed this way: are we going to see some significant environmental or social, and by that I mean conflict, potentially military conflict event that is worldwide that impacts us all? If that happens, that's just more confirmation for me. We're being pushed and pushed and pushed, not for destruction, but for a decision point and realizing you have the power and you've got to make a choice.
Definitely. And we've seen this since 9/11, or even before 9/11. A man in the desert will start the end of times. Will start the end of times war. And every time something flares up in the Middle East, this is it.
Yes.
It's over. This is the end of it. This is what's going to happen. When we started fighting Iran this time, this is it. It's the end of it. When there's a fight with Israel, any year Israel's in a fight, which is pretty much every year Israel's in a fight.
Yes.
It's the end of times. So for my 55 years of life, it's been the end of times a lot.
Yes.
You start to get numb to that. And now, like you said, it might be a combination thereof, the environmental and the physical fight between two countries or the whole world involved again, like a World War II or World War I. And then an environmental collapse on top of that. I think that might be the thing that shows a lot of signs where maybe, yes, we got to start watching those signs, and hopefully it comes to a better conclusion than any movie that we've ever seen.
And that's the purpose. And that's the purpose for me talking to you today, Rich, is to get people, again, back to awareness that if we make different choices, we're going to see different results. And so it's up to us to make better choices. So be aware, make better choices.
Definitely. And Scott, it's been we went through 55 minutes, awesome talk here. Great talk tonight. If everyone watching tonight remembered only one thing from our conversation and acted on it tomorrow morning, what would you want that one thing to be?
The action is to assess your own influence by outside forces. The idea is to take back your power. You have the power. If you are aware you have the power, that would be the most important, impactful thing I believe you could do.
Outstanding. All right. Now we're going to flip the switch a little bit here. What's the best place for someone to get in contact with Scott and maybe pick your brain like we did tonight?
Yes. The easiest place is if you're on LinkedIn or I point people toward LinkedIn because it's the easy place for me for someone to connect. Just send a connection to me. I'll connect and we can message and then take it offline onto email or even a phone conversation or perhaps a video chat. So that would be an opportunity to connect. So I point folks toward LinkedIn to reach out to me.
Outstanding. I'm showing your books now on the screen. They can see every one of your books here. This is the one I was highlighting earlier. Americans, really, that's really the stupid. I think that's the awesome cover. I mean, they're all great covers. That one just pops out at you as soon as you open the page. So that's the Amazon page. You can go visit Scott there. Go to his LinkedIn, connect, and pick his brain. I mean, we had a great conversation tonight. You can have a great conversation with him as well.
Absolutely.
Scott, the last question the Misfit Nation is going to give you tonight is, what's 3 things the Misfit Nation can start doing tomorrow, our audience, to be better humans?
First of all, look within. All change is fundamentally from within. Realize that you have the power. It's up to you. The choices you make impact everything around you. Every choice you make ripples to affect others because we're all connected. The other thing, and I will go back to this, have real live face-to-face conversations with real live human beings with subjects and topics of impact.
Heck yes, real conversations. Look them in the eyes. When you go to a counter, look in the eyes of the person that you're talking to. Say the name that's on their crazy name tag there. It surprises them sometimes that you know their name because they forget they're wearing that name tag, or if it's actually their name because they might be wearing someone else because they forgot theirs. But still, just talk to them. Look in them in the eyes and say, "Hey, thank you, Jeremy, and have a good day." And that might make their day and make them happy to move on. And it's the ripple effect that Scott was just talking about. You cause the ripples, and third order effects might make them have a way better day and be better to someone on their way home. Scott, thanks again for sharing some of your time tonight on a Sunday night on Father's Day. Fathers out there, hopefully you had a great day and your kids took care of you today. If not, happy Father's Day. We just took care of you. Scott, you have a great night, and we hope to see you again in the future.
Absolutely, Rich. Thank you very much.
Misfit Nation, I hope you got a lot out of this tonight. I know I did. I know the Who's They crew is in the chat. I know they did. And what we always get out of it is that we want you here tomorrow. We want you on our next show. So if that darkness is caving in on you, do not give into it. Do not make a permanent decision to a temporary problem. I know it sounds crazy, me saying it's a temporary problem that you're having, but we can work through anything. That's why you have those numbers in your wallet. 3 names. Call those people. They want to talk to you. If you don't want to call them because you're embarrassed or whatever, dial 988. Follow the prompts. Get someone to help you. If all that doesn't help, all that doesn't work, contact us at the Misfit Nation. info@themisfitnation.com, Steven@themisfitnation.com, or Jake@themisfitnation.com. We will keep you on the line with a local person so you get that help you need, and you're here tomorrow. Because a day tomorrow with you is better than one without you. Until next time, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling. Good night, everyone.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.